With more we here to bring the truth in this podcast. We breaking down the fake news, so we will be subdued. We'll beard it out from meals here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass, Christian tapes, exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up. We won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast where the truth is laid. Jar cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Calling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. With the voice of reason, bringing light to the street, keeping it real, never missing, never missing. Open this podcast where the truth meets the heat. Jar open, we're cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast where the lies will decrease.
All right, so I see House is helping us out, and I heard the same thing. Let me know if there is an echo. Audio is effed, huh? Okay.
I think it was just the intro. That happened with Cool Vic. I wouldn't worry about it. I don't know. It was just the I think it was just the intro song.
Okay. I'm gonna actually turn the volume up on my phone and see if we're echoing here.
Word. But welcome in, everybody. Don't want to leave you out without an intro while you see this fantastic gentleman with us, Mr. Darkcel. But I'll turn it back over to Worrell.
Yeah, certainly. So it seems to be okay. Guys, let me know in chat if that echo and everything seems to be resolved. Hopefully that problem doesn't continue as we go along. But we're joined tonight by Darkcel. This is our 101st episode. Unfortunately, Atlas was sick for the 100th episode last time, but it's good to have you back there, Atlas. Tonight we're going to get into we're going to talk a little bit politics, and then we're going to get into the fun stuff with the cryptids, and we have kind of a link between the two. And so you can probably tell from the thumbnail. That's the hint. Right. Excellent thumbnail. Thank you to Atlas for making that. I really like that thumbnail, by the way. And so we're going to start off. We're going to dabble back in the Israel-Iran aftermath. And we're going to get into the Palantir, Peter Thiel kind of stuff that's been talked about lately. And then, like I said, graduate that over to the cryptids and, how religion also might have a factor in some of this stuff and what we've seen in the Bible and everything like that that's been written. So looking forward to doing this one. And I'm going to go ahead and kick this one over to you, Atlas. Or actually, Darkcel, you want to tell us a little bit about where we could find you, any of that good stuff?
Hey, guys. How's it going? I am Darkcel, also known as the Spider Cell, with great power comes no responsibility on my end. You can find me on Rumble, and you could find me on YouTube, but they keep deleting me. They don't like me because I'm a hate speech monger type of guy. It is what it is. But yes, find me on Rumble. I'm a piece of crap, apparently, to everybody around me. I'm probably worse. I'm actually probably looked at worse than Nick Fuentes, although for different reasons. So yes, follow me on Rumble, just the Darkcel.
Perfect. Hey, we appreciate that. Yeah, so Rumble at the Darkcel. This has kind of been a baby episode of mine, as kind of Worrell alluded to in the green room a little bit. And some of the things that I kind of think about, as we kind of explore these topics and we go through the different episodes, we kind of get a little too zoomed in, at least in my opinion. And what happens when you get zoomed in, I think largely you kind of lose the bigger picture. When you get so zoomed in, you forget to understand, well, wait a minute, when I take a step back, what are the actual strategic objectives of all the big players here? And one thing I think that gets missed often in topical news shows is connecting the dots to a lot of things and a lot of larger running ideas, a lot of larger running conspiracies and narratives and how they all kind of intermix with each other. So where we're going to start is actually going to start again with topical news, and we're going to slowly kind of trickle into a bit of larger kind of concept ideas. But one of the first things I want to actually explore with the Darkcel, because he did catch me on stream, and it was a pretty cool kind of mashup there. But one of the things, and this will be the first question I'll pose to the Darkcel, as it pertains to the Israel-Iran ceasefire, all of the kind of clear, no matter which side you're on, I think it was clear to everybody paying attention that there was obviously being crafted digital sentiment, astroturfing all around the entire thing. And where we are now is essentially, we still don't know what happened to the enriched uranium. A lot of people are of the idea that a lot of this is just theater. We're seeing a lot of symbolic strikes, calling ahead of time and saying, hey, move your guys, let me bomb your area. Hey, yeah, you move your guys, I'll bomb your area. And so a lot of people kind of get this cognitive dissonance. So I'd like to turn over to you, if you want to kind of give us your kind of broad idea of what you're kind of making of what you're seeing from Israel, Iran, and the general politics of the last couple months.
Yeah, so I would actually say if this was a movie, this would be a remake of what was going on back in 01. This is just a remake. And it seems like what's happening, despite the ceasefire, which, by the way, I'm very iffy on if it's an actual like ceasefire, because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like time is going so quick. Like these certain events just come up and you're like, well, how the hell did they do that so quick? You know, it's very interesting, the decisions being made. It's like in one side we're about to go to war, another it's like, no, we're all fine. But my spider senses are tingling, and it's telling me that things aren't as they appear. I think I was telling you off air that there's got to be some sort of blackmail going on between people, and there has to be some sort of gun to the head type of thing where hey, if you do this, I can do this. I know this about you. I know that about you. Your wife was with me last night. It's like that type of thing. It's right. There is some sort of, and it's on all sides. I think it's all on all sides. So I'm not saying like Trump's a good guy or Benjamin Netanyahu is whatever is on top or whatever the heck. But the fact of the matter is, it feels like a repeat. And I think the ceasefire is just there because they're trying to. It is like a gaslighting thing to the American people, or really to the world in general, but specifically to us because we live here. And it's like, hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You don't have to go to war yet. It feels weird. It feels weird, and I don't have to wear a mask or like big white eyes. I don't have to have all this to tell you that there's something going on. And I think the ceasefire, it's not really, I don't think it's 100%. And anybody who thinks Trump is a great president suddenly like, oh, look, he stopped a war. It is merely just what's the word? It's biding time. It's biding time. So
right. No. And I'll add to that if you don't mind me cutting in just real quick. When it comes to war, when did war even begin in the Middle East? And I certainly don't think it ended this week. You know what I mean? I believe even I could be incorrect, but I think Israel is still even lobbing stuff, but not at Iran. But we saw what led into this with the way that they did the pager attack on the was it Hezbollah, I think, in Lebanon, and then the continuing thing that's going on in Gaza and everything like that. But It seems to me too, you kind of had a light bulb go off when you were talking there, Darkcel. It almost feels like you said mask, and then I'm like, you know what? Seems like they've just been kind of testing the public for quite a while to see what will actually let them get away with. You know what I mean? And they measure the backlash on, the social medias and stuff like that. And I just can't help but wonder, at least a part of me wonder, if they saw the negative backlash in the 12 days as far as, from Americans saying we do not want American boots on the ground. We don't want American involvement in the offensive attacks coming out of Ben Shapiro's favorite country. I said Benjamin, it threw me off. Ben Shapiro's favorite country.
It's good.
And so, and then, Trump's base was pretty much okay with the targeted bombings of, like Soleimani in his first term and things like that. So then they kind of summed it up with, this was more of what we saw in the first term. And if it ends there, then it kind of is what it was. Like, it's kind of like we've seen it before a little bit. Now this is a bit of a rinse repeat. New bad guy. Well, same kind of bad guy. The Soleimani was an Iranian dude that was headed up the three H's, the three terror cells. And so, I don't know. You know what I mean? I know going forward, I hope that this is the end of, World War III and the 12-day war, whatever they want to call it. I'm calling it World War III, to be honest with you. I'm not doing what Trump's saying. Calling it the 12-day war. That's just not fun enough.
Right.
But yeah, it just kind of made me think that maybe they've just been testing the public ever since, the pandemic. Maybe it probably goes on beyond that, to be honest with you. Maybe, BLM in its inception, when it happened in Ferguson with the hands up, don't shoot or whatever, I think is where it kind of came out or really hit the scene. We get these phrases, we get these things that people cling to in social medias, and then it literally creates a whole fire frenzy and movements and GoFundMe's and Gifts in Go accounts and donations. And like we saw what happened with the Anthony kid, the Carmelo Anthony kid, which ironically enough, just a side note, apparently he's seeking public defender now, paid for by the tax dollars because they spent all the money. I don't know if that's 100% true, but that is some of the reports that are coming out. So, yeah. But anyways,
Right.
Not to get too far off topic. I figured I'd throw that in there since.
No, you're right. I mean, my kind of thought process with the ceasefire, I kind of talked to some people in the Discord too, kind of having the similar thoughts, is that it seemed like they weren't able to manufacture enough public consensus and pro sentiment fast enough in the 12 days it was happening, that I think the ceasefire was their way of pulling back, because they knew it was going to, for one, you have Netanyahu's already on the ropes, right? You have Trump trying to, throw bones out to him on True Social by saying they need to stop this witch hunt because the Israelis want him on trial for corruption, right? So their own citizens of that government want him on trial. And then you have to think about the fact of, too, when you go to things like Charlie Kirk, right? Charlie Kirk, no new wars, but I'm going to run a poll on X asking, how do my fans and followers feel about regime change war? Because it was clear they were searching for the public sentiment. And in my opinion, they couldn't get it fast enough, hence the ceasefire. And if anything, a very arbitrary one at that it looks like you had mentioned, looks like no one's going to, honor. But yeah, go ahead, Darkcel.
No, I just wanted to add, it's very interesting to bring up Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, pro-Israel, and God, what was I about to say? Who was I thinking of just then? Was it Tim Pool? I remember Charlie Kirk way back. I don't know. I don't remember if this was like a couple of years ago. Maybe it could have been 5 years. It could have been around actually the first time Trump was coming around, so it could have been like the 2016, 27, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you know what I'm talking about with he went to Israel and talked about how he thought that America is just what was it? America is just a thought. It's just an experiment, whereas Israel's an actual place. I think he made some comment like that.
Yeah.
And there's people like that. And I'm trying to, I don't remember if it was Tim Pool, but no, yeah, that's right. And recently, as in a year or something, Tim Pool met with Benjamin Netanyahu. And ever since then, he's been like spurging. If anyone says anything that's even related to like not liking Israel, he'll say, and just to draw it back a bit, he'll say that he does not support Israel like that, but for some reason he'll turn the conversation around with any guest he has. Right. I don't know if you saw him with Elijah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, and the chick, the Sarah chick.
Sarah South.
Yeah.
When they question him about that, like, wait, you met with him and there was just whatever, and he's like, oh yeah, no, but nobody cared, everybody laughed at him and this and that and that. I'm like, no, you're not telling the full truth. You're not telling the full truth.
Right.
It definitely is not. And also around the election time, remember they used the Daily Wire to do their thing, and Tim left his own show, his own broadcast. I watched it live, by the way. I don't know about you. I don't know what you guys were
the
watching
election
around
coverage.
that time,
Yeah.
but I was watching it live, and I remember he's like, "Oh, gotta go, guys," and then like Phil Anselmo, Phil Labonte from all that
Pantera.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Do not confuse the Phils, please. Please, Pantera.
That's funny.
But I like Phil Anselmo better anyway. But the fact of the matter is that it's like he left Phil on his own with that show, and then all of a sudden it switched over to Daily Wire, and as far as I'm concerned, he's been bought out. I think Tim Cast has been bought out, especially because it didn't work out with Steven Crowder.
Right. Well, and so what's funny enough is actually this was literally.
I don't know if I went off topic, but that.
No, you're fine. Don't apologize. This was where I got my start on YouTube. Actually, was at the very beginning of when Crowder aired out his disagreements with the Daily Wire, and ever since then, I've been kind of following that thread of there's some kind of controlled mechanism in conservative media, hence Con Inc., right? It's got the name now, Con Inc. It's like a very establishment kind of conservative idea. And I'll turn it back to you then. As it pertains to this, like, clear loss of credibility from Tim Pool, clear loss of credibility from the Daily Wire, clear loss of credibility from a lot of people, and especially a lot so in the last, 2 weeks. And you can kind of see the big tent kind of conservative coalition kind of begin to fracture. And it was always going to. But why do you think that there is such a massive gap between where the young Republicans are, say, young Republican men, or let's not even say Republican, let's just say conservative and right-leaning men that are maybe ages, anywhere from 16 to late 20s, and then all other right-leaning individuals? It's clear there's a distinct different energy between those groups. And I was curious, why do you think makes for that kind of disparity there?
Yeah, one word or two words: social media. I really think it's or just say the internet, the interweb, the web. Surf the web, guys.
Right.
So I really do believe they're looking at, and this does go into the whole mistrust of your boomer, grandparents, your Gen X or millennial parents or whatever. You're looking at and it's not just, and this is where it starts, right? It's like if you're growing up and you're like, my mom, my dad separated, my friends, their mom, dad separated, and then you realize, oh, there's more to it than this. Kind of things start revealing themselves, especially when you start getting older. Because at least for me, because my parents are divorced by the time I was 10, 8, something like that. Anyways, but it's interesting that by the time that starts happening, and then you kind of keep growing. And by the way, this is for both men and boys and girl, male and female. I mean, they're gonna have their different whatever mindset. I do believe they kind of look at that. They're like, my mom and dad were able to raise me in a house. I go out college. They tell me to go to college. Of course, guys are not going to college as much as women. Right. That's just a fact. And it's true. And I don't want to get into the whole male female dynamic, but I will say this. I'll say that the guys at least are like, okay, wait a second. I'm not getting any benefits to go to college. I'm hated there, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. If I just do jobs, I'm not getting paid enough to do all this crap. I'm told to, and this is where the quiet quitting aspect kind of started arising too. It's like, what's quiet quitting? And I don't know if you saw the Tommy Lauren crap with Piers Morgan, but Tommy Lauren was all like, oh, quiet quitting, it just means I'm not going to work. I'm not going to do it. It's like, no, it means you work, but I don't give a damn. And I'm not going to do like all this extra crap. And by the way, I worked in the restaurant business for a decade, and my boss tried making me do all this extra crap that was not paid for. It was after hours or before hours all the time. And I accepted it because when you're a really young kid, 16 years old, of course you're going to be like, I guess, you know, and then by the time you're like in your 20s, 30s, you know, once you hit those ages, you're like, nah, I ain't doing that crap no more.
Right.
And you realize you only live, most of us only are going to live till maybe 60, 70 years old. Most of us can't live to 80. I'm sorry, but the food we're eating and all that, we're going to die soon.
Right.
And whatever, and all these boosters and vaccine, whatever the heck. And so,
so you're basically saying it's a combination of.
I went off topic. What was the original?
So I was curious what you think like it causes this massive kind of disparity between the right faction just from age alone, right?
No. Actually, what the irony is that the younger generation is more right wing than their own so-called right wing parents or their grandparents. You know why? Because all their grandparents they're all neocons. They're all like, oh, everybody but me. Everybody should be taken care of but me and my kids. These are the same people who are like, wait, what? Save my money up? I'm going to give it to my kids when I die? Nope. I'm going to give it right back to the government. I don't care about my kids. Oh, wait, why don't my kids want to take care of me when I'm old and ill? Yeah, because you want me to die. You want me to go homeless. So I do think there's a resentment there. And that resentment is like, you know what? And then, of course, there's people like me, like the incel, right? It's like, I'm going to vote pro-male no matter what. Like, there's a resentment to that. There's a resentment toward the women. And it's like, it's not all women, of course, but the fact of the matter is the way the system kind of works, it feels like you're being told to keep doing what your grandparents and your parents did, but you're not getting any of that benefit.
Right. Well, listen, I actually said this.
Especially the war. Sorry. Especially the war thing. It's like, why should I go and die if there's like, who am I protecting? Like, I'm a loner. I have no kids. I have nothing. I have nothing to come back to. And actually, that makes sense, right? Why would you want to send the married men to go die in war? Just send the incels, send the Redditor, send the 4chan guy. You know, it's like send those guys because they're cattle. They're cattle for slaughter. Okay.
Yeah, no. Well, two things I'd like to go into there, and not to take it here, because I know we talked about this beforehand. The first, and so on that issue, right? So I actually concluded my actual most recent video about what's his name, Saran Mamdani, about the fact that a dynamic that we are. What's that?
I'm just messing around. I say you don't mess with your Zohan.
Oh, word, okay.
You remember the movie with Adam Sandler, the Zohan?
Yeah, yeah. Which I've seen that meme.
That's all I can think about, dude. That's all
the Hollywood poster.
I'm sorry, dude. I derailed you.
Good. I basically concluded on the similar line, a broader point to what your specific point, which was that people, for some reason, don't want to accept, which is a lot of individuals are not even becoming, like, they are single issue voters, but not in the sense of they're voting for something. A lot of people are voting simply because of one thing they cannot stand. And so, for example, like with women coming into 2024, they were voting largely for Kamala against Republicans wanting to go after abortion. And so you kind of have this kind of similar dynamic, even more in a looser sense, even before, like back in 2020, right? Which the argument was that people really weren't voting for Joe Biden. They were voting against Trump.
Right.
And this thing that you kind of highlighted it there, which was you don't even, like, you could care less about the theater going on. Your main issue is the one that's the most effectual to you, which is male issues. So your kind of mindset is focused on who's got the most pro kind of male platform, and that's what I'm gonna gravitate towards. And people got irritated, like it's more diverse than that. And it's like, no, it's like it really isn't. I think you think about how people are and how human beings are very specialized. I think that implies that at the same time, people will have very, very specific, apex needs that to them, it's like this issue's the priority. Everything else falls second place to that. And I think the same thing is true for the kind of incel community. Same thing's true for like feminists. And then you can find all these other different factions as well too, right? Like the anti-Zionists, right? Anything anti-Israel, they'll vote for, even if it's like it swamps the country with brown people, you know. And you could find these kind of similarities everywhere, where they'll cut their nose to spite their face just because they're so anti one specific thing.
Mm.
And
Well,
it-
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
finish your thought. I was just gonna
Well,
say, I'm curious. You mentioned that a lot of people might have voted on like the one topic thing, and that popped in my head, and I wonder if maybe this is a couple of dots that might need to be connected here. There was a lot of people, and I think it's the libertarians that swung pro-Trump, kind of within the last year. I'll say year because I mean 6 months we're staying in 2025, and so yeah, because of Dave Smith and probably mostly Dave Smith and
Clint Russell.
Oh, Clint Russell. Thank you. That was the other name I was looking for. Even you know. I believe Scott Horton kind of in that realm too.
Right.
But so whenever and their one issue, and I'm asking, was it that maybe their one issue that they were sold on Trump that was the most important thing to them? No new wars. That phrase right there, because it seems like, you know, Dave Smith's response, some of the people like in that same camp were ready. You know, he apologized for voting for Trump, basically felt betrayed. And I wonder if that was because that was his one issue, and that was it. You know what I mean? So then it's like, look, the one thing I voted for you for, the one thing that swung me here, and now I'm looking at another endless war. Thankfully, we have the you know, at least current situation that is the ceasefire. Which, look, I don't give a shit if Israel and Iran duke it out all day long. I've said multiple times on the show, let them fight it out, and we'll just deal with the winner. We'll strike a mineral deal with the winner, and we'll save a lot of money in the meantime, right? And we'll protect our American boys' lives and stuff like that, which still I don't think those guys have been really threatened, you know what I mean? Nobody was going to hit the B-2s out of the sky, you know, and that's like the biggest American life threat, besides the guys camped in local bases and stuff like that. But that all seemed to be kind of just a facade for show. So I just wonder, maybe that might be a couple dots that are worth connecting, you know, where as far as why we've seen this like really harsh reaction, you know what I mean? And yeah, I see a comment here. Trump promised to pardon Lars Ulbricht, and he did, or Albright or whatever.
Ross Ulbricht.
Ross. Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember his name. And he did that. He did deliver that to them, but I don't know if that was the one thing that really like got him. That might have just been like the plus one. Also the pro Trump being like kind of pro Bitcoin, I think was maybe another like plus one, but maybe that main thing might have been the no new wars. That might have been the thing that they clung to, because it seems like a lot of those folks weren't really like, they're more surprised at the strike. And it's kind of like, well, Trump has maintained for 20 years, even before he was president, that Iran can't have nuclear stuff. So, I mean, every man has his red line, and you got to factor that into. But I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there, because I think that might be the crux, the pivot point for a lot of folks.
Well, if I can cut in just quickly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Do you remember when Trump did go to one of those the libertarian function, and he got booed, pretty much? Yeah. And Dave Smith was there. That's I didn't actually watch Dave
Smith was like, "Fuck Trump," I think is what he even said that day. I made a video on America First TV about it, actually calling him out.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it was my intro to Dave Smith, actually.
Yeah, I mean, if any, I don't know how you guys feel about Dave Smith. I mean, I actually don't even know how I feel about Dave Smith, to be honest. Because
I like him.
You say you like him?
Yeah, I like him. I don't agree with everything he says, but I don't agree with anything everything anybody says.
Right. No, I mean, I don't trust anyone. I guess that's kind of like the sort of sentiment to have sort of with everyone, all these guys who make millions of dollars. I personally paranoid with anybody who's like, 1% in general. I don't care if they're a comedian, Hollywood, or a politician. I don't care. I kind of have my doubts with them. But my point with the Dave Smith and all that is, I I've always had kind of a problem with libertarians in general, not as much as liberals, but libertarians, because they do kind of like ride the fence constantly. And it's Dave Smith just shouldn't have voted. Like, in a way, libertarians just shouldn't vote if they don't believe in. And by the way, I mean, we could go in a whole conversation about why the two-party system even exists, and there's theories on that. And I believe it's all to divide us,
Sure.
100%. And even George Washington, before he left office, he was all like, yeah, America shouldn't deal with foreign affairs. They shouldn't have a two-party system. Like, he knew. I think he just knew that it was going to happen. And he was just like, let's not do that. And then they did it anyway.
Yeah.
Anyways, and I don't know. I don't know if like someone like George Washington would have been a libertarian today, but
No.
you know,
not at all. You know, and that's one thing I kind of actually point out a lot too. I'm glad you said that about libertarians, because libertarians literally suck. And you're like super spot on with that too. And that's actually part of the issue that we see. And this is like, again, you know, another zoom out here, which is a lot of guys like in my dad's generation, right? And I think you can kind of see this largely with like Gen X, was, you know, they're kind of coming away from the, you know, the Reaganism kind of era, right? The beginning of the kind of co-opting of the right wing, moving very far left to where they normally usually are. And what I kind of first seen happening, and I can see it even nowadays too, which is what I do end up getting a lot is you'll see that men will generally try to be involved in politics. They'll get involved to a certain level, or they'll try to be involved, and it's like the moment they have the experience with the red tape, or they see just how corrupt something is, or they see the amount of money going into something, or the lobbying, they get that kind of cognitive dissonance. And as soon as they get the cognitive dissonance, they adopt, you know, colloquially, the libertarian agenda, which is leave me alone. Just leave me alone and I'll be okay. And that's what they want, because if every man begins to, you know, at the same time, almost simultaneously over a short period of time, abdicate their responsibility to communicate to a community, abdicate their responsibility towards the vision of the country, right? Their stake in the country for the direction it is, and they just abdicate it and they go, whatever those crazy people are yelling about in the country, let's just let them run the country. And that's exactly how you get where we are right now, which is a bunch of insane people running the country. No, everybody feels like they're not represented. And that is because we let the crazies and the elites just have at it with the system, because we all got tired of even wanting to interact with it. And I can see that happening again, unfortunately, with what we saw in the last like 14 days, which was people were so confused. They were disappointed with Trump. They saw conflicting information back to back to back. And everyone just was like, I don't care, dude. Like, I thought we got, you know, fell forward again award, right? Here we are again, battling in the Middle East. And people, and that's the thing too, you can't expect that everyone knows the full picture either. But when they take away the small bits, which is Trump said no new wars, now Trump is bombing Iran, they just connect the small dots there, which is like, I got lied to, dude. I got fucking hoodwinked. And then that's when they go to the whole, they just leave me alone, because now they don't care, because now they feel like they've been burned for trusting into somebody for something. And when they feel like they got burned, it's not a good feeling, and they don't want to come back to it at all. And they just like let the people take care of it. And I think when you have that repeatedly happen and men are kind of they're driven out of being involved, normal men, that's when you get, I think, what you see today, which is a lot of just nonsensical, incoherent degeneracy. It's rampant. It's wild, and it's super unfortunate.
And one of the things that kind of added to that was, you know, the Candace Owens is out here, and Steven Crowder called him out, and I think we might even touch this a little bit. But some of these people were out here, you know, it was worded as catering to bots, essentially. And you saw Candace out here telling people to desert, go AWOL from the military, basically ruin your military career over this type of stuff. There's a lot of people that were, honestly, I think capitalizing on that pivotal moment, that weakness in people. And they saw, like, I could go out here and say a bunch of stuff and get a bunch of clicks. And, you know, it didn't age well for Candace. I mean, telling people to literally go face 5 years in prison and thousands of dollars in fines, cost yourself your retirement, everything like that, over, you know, what we end up seeing now in hindsight, never amounted to what she was saying that it was going to be.
Yeah, Tim Pool did the same thing.
And she did. Yeah. A few folks did. Ian Carroll was one. He's kind of hip and hip with Candace right now. Dave Smith was one. There was a few of these folks in, and I just think that where's it going with that? That oh, it just wasn't healthy. It was a bad decision for those folks to do at that time. I think they should have known better. And I wish kind of that zoom out lens. I think that's the theme of the show. It's not really the theme of the show, but that should be the theme of the culture right now. Is we need to zoom out and kind of look at the bigger thing and stop being so like kind of, what was it, gut reactive or whatever to just right away. And I know that's part of it is when you're in this and you're creating content, you got to have something for the people. It was just there was a lot of bad decisions made that compounded back to back to back to back right there. And thankfully, in my mind, Steven Crowder kind of came out and laid it out in that whole, like, it was about 45 minutes, I believe, where he just kind of was like, look, y'all are doing really bad disservice to your people. And all you had to do was just apologize and say you were wrong. Instead, you dug your heels in. Even Candace went even another step further and set it on Pierce Morgan. And she conflated it. And it's one of these things where they give you one truth. And this is a Democrat. Well, it's a Destiny talking point. It's a tactic, I mean. Cenk Uygur does it. The Young Turks, Destiny does it. They throw a bunch of facts at you when really one or two things are true. You don't really have time to rebuttal everything, but the fact that they throw at you is valid. Like she said, well, I'm not going to have, I would rather my sons go to prison for 5 years than get drafted into a war. It's like, whoa, what do you mean drafted into a war? You just turned this whole thing into now people are getting drafted. And it spins like a hypothetical situation that then people emotionally react to. And again, it's not healthy. And where she should have just took a step back and kind of been like, yo, let me reevaluate this whole scenario. Because what did I just tell people? I just told people to basically ruin their lives over being drafted, which isn't even happening, for war. And like, she just conflated it into this whole huge thing. And so I don't know.
Is it going to be looked at like the vaccine mandates? And 4 years from now, you'll have guys who will get vindicated for the fact that they did walk away at the early onset. And that's one thing too, which is like, I even had an interview with a guy who, protecting his identity a bit too, because he did walk away from the military from that at getting screamed at, right, by his parents, people in his family. Because they're getting mad, right? He's throwing away his retirement. He's throwing away what is like a pension fund or whatever else kind of benefits you get alongside that. Because I know there's quite a bit that comes to the military. But he was like, listen, like, I don't want to inject this in my body. And it's ridiculous that they're forcing me to anyways. The same way I can, like, even if you're telling people that as well, like if you had the thought process and you had the wherewithal and you thought that your government was doing something that was wrong, I would say, for me, I'm the type of person who would go above and beyond and say, I would make the sacrifice for what I believe is right. And we talked about the founding fathers too, which that's kind of a great pivot point, which is if the founding fathers came back today, right now, and saw America, they'd start gunning us all down. They would there would be blood in the streets, and it would be me, you,
well, they would just look at the taxes.
Well, that too. That's all they would need to look at. They wouldn't need to see the streets of New York or the streets of Philadelphia. They would immediately just straight up say, what has happened? And I think that's when you got to kind of picture the fact that we are so far off base from the original intention of the country. And that's when you get these guys, we covered it with Myron on Uncensored America. And I props to the young kid. You could tell he was super nervous, and he was like 19 years old. But, he's mad, and he's talking about the Naturalization Act of 1790. And he's like angry. He was like, it's clear as day. If you look up any of these old documents, this country was built for white Christian men. Like that is explicit in the documents over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And you just compare that to like some of the ideals we're at now. And again, it just shows like the Overton window has moved so far. And now you get men that look like Dean Withers. And here's a great point. And if you wanted to put that video up there of Dean Withers crashing out, world, it's going to be the fourth one on the breaking section. And this is kind of where we're getting the fall of man, if you will. It's taking a whole new step. And again, go big picture. You had mentioned it a bit earlier, Darkcel, about the food and like the the kind of poison we're consuming. And maybe we will see a life expectancy drop in the United States just because how bad some of this stuff is. But I'm of the belief that not only is it part of a kind of social contagion, right? The effeminization of men. I think there is a strong social element to it, a strong social pressure. I'm also of the belief that I do think there is a physical element in terms of the biological and chemical warfare that's been happening on not just men, but all of us at the same time. And you kind of think early moments of Alex Jones, right? They're turning the freaking frogs gay.
Mhm.
And you kind of look at some of the similarities between the chemicals and the carcinogens that are present in our food. I would have to imagine that there is some kind of actual downstream effect with all this happening that is churning out a lot more homosexual and homoerotic men than you would have expected to see, 20 years ago. And how much of it's to blame for social contagions, how much of the blame is physical, being drugged and poisoned with your food. Either way, we got to figure it out, because people like Dean Withers, I'm seeing a dime a dozen. And this crash out, I don't know if you've seen this, Darkcel, but this was him losing his mind over his anxiety pen, which I think is just a vape. But I would like your opinion on Dean Withers and where you are with this kind of behavior and what you think of it.
I'll play this real quick. TNT says, "Is he 11?" It's funny because I thought Dean Withers. I don't know who this guy is, but I thought he was like old dude. He's got an old guy named Dean Withers. I don't know. I feel like he went to school with my dad. Anyways,
I think he's like 24.
I'm sorry that
24. Okay. Yeah. Gosh, man, people are just looking younger and younger these days. It's wild.
Pen. I'm sorry that I have anxiety. Okay, and honestly, yeah, pen. I'm sorry that I have anxiety. Okay, and honestly, yeah, it is kind of the fault of people like you that want to come up here and bully and berate me over something that I don't do. Okay, so cut the shit. It's not a vape. All right, it's an anxiety pin.
It's a pacifier? Sorry.
And God, the amount of times that I've asked you to respect me and respect my anxiety pin is at this point getting ridiculous, Cody. So please.
Justified crash out.
For the final and for the
X. I gotta refresh.
pin. I'm sorry that I have anxiety. Okay, and
all right, sorry, hang on. Is he being serious?
Yeah, this was real.
This is like a real like spaz out. Like I think the youngsters call it a spurg. But dang,
spurg out. And it's basically more of the same. But I was curious, right? What is Darkcel's take when you see men kind of exhibit this kind of behavior? What
they need to be punched in the face. Like seriously, I'm gonna ask you a question. Can I ask you guys a question really quick?
Yeah.
Have you guys gotten in fights before, physical fights?
Yeah, lots.
Do you think this guy has?
No.
I think a lot of that behavior.
I don't think he's ever got a timeout.
Yeah, yeah. This is the type of person who throws their controller because they suck at Dark Souls. This is like I'm just saying this is not. I'm gonna tell you. I'm just gonna tell you. Like we've all had our spurg moments, but there's at some point. It doesn't matter what it is, but like we all have our private spurg moments, but you don't put it online like that.
Right.
But two. It's the fact that there's so many of these type of people, and somehow they're still making it through life. That always pissed me off. Kind of like it's like you got regular people who don't do this stuff and they suck at life too, but like they don't do this. I don't know. It's just there's some unfairness to, I mean, this guy's known, right? By the way, I don't know who this guy is, so I don't. But I'm assuming he's known in his spaces, right?
Yeah, so this guy actually went like super viral because he was one of the first ever to do the 20 versus 1 on Jubilee.
Oh,
and
okay.
He was like the one liberal versus like 20 conservatives. And he kind of did really well for like the raw kind of liberal kind of takes right on there. And truth be told, the conservatives they brought on that episode weren't the best or equipped to even take him on some of the pushback he had. So he blew up in virality, right? So he has like I think over 1 million followers on X. I don't know what else he does. I know this is like a TikTok live thing he does, but he even debated Nick Fuentes. Actually, he got so decently big.
Oh, okay.
And so like this is, and so to
And it
me,
looks like
like,
there's 9,000 watching the stream that he's on. I see a 9.11. So that's a
yeah.
decent.
And I think, well, that's just for Parker, who's his co-streamer. He's the bigger
Okay.
one of the two.
I know who Parker is. Yeah,
Yeah, Parker's
Okay.
been doing a lot more stuff on TikTok, and I think
the guy who said he loves trannies, right?
yes, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the guy.
yeah. That's the one who I made I made the video about him with Parker there too. But this is what I kind of see, right? And this is what I think is you know something to be concerned about, which is you have two pipelines. You have one pipeline for, and this is for young men, right? Because no young men are going to Daily Wire or the Fox News anymore, right? That's over.
Right.
You have two pipelines. You have one pipeline that's feeding men down the Nick Fuentes, Andrew Tate, Sneeko route, which is like the red pill. And then you have the other pipeline sending men down the Dean Withers, Parker, David Hogg, and, Twinks R Us pipeline. And I expect that is going to have extreme consequences 10, 15 years from now. And we already kind of see it a little bit, but where you can kind of tell right before a guy goes to talk, I can kind of tell anymore, like, oh, he's a gay liberal. I know it's this guy's about to say. Kind of like when you get that physiognomy, right? Physiognomy tells all. You can kind of tell by the way somebody looks.
It's a gaydar.
That'll be worse 15 years from now. And you can kind of see it on like their physicality too, right? Where like seems like the guys who follow Nick and Tate and Zerka and Myron tend to be those who are the ones who are at the gym, the ones who might have their life a bit more together. Or they could be complete incels, but they're at least not saying they love trans people and then getting mad about it online. And then you have this pipeline, which is like the fruity, the, homosexual adjacent kind of like pipeline. And I don't know what to make of that, because you would think, at least for me, if I was to be presented with these two options, I think I would naturally, as a male, gravitate towards Tate and Nick and all the guys there. So it kind of makes me think, what is the natural gravitas of this guy and these kind of liberals? What is it? Real people, or are these real young men who are following these guys? I mean, maybe you have a stronger kind of, concept on that, because I can't understand it for the life of me.
Talking to me, or
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's interesting because I wouldn't consider myself like red pill. I'm more black pill.
Yeah.
But, you're right. If I had to like pick a side, I'm gonna pick Nick and Zerka's side,
Right.
over, only because it's like they're not the censor mongers or whatever. They're not trying to like hurt me. They're not trying to kill me. But
Right.
people like this dude, these are the guys who try to fight you while crying. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
sex.
yeah, it's like I'm telling you to get away from me while I'm trying to punch you. It's like that's what that side is. And it's funny because I saw that transition, by the way, of how men acted when I was 16 working, and then by the time I quit at like 27,
Right.
so like, yeah, over a decade. But you saw it. It was really weird how they went from, yeah, I don't care, bro, shit, yeah, to all of a sudden, oh my God, Adderall, oh my God. Like it is a complete different shift. And, people say the manosphere, but I'm like, it went from the man, whatever this manosphere was, to, I don't know what to call it other than gays. Liberalism, whatever you want to call it.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I'm just gonna say this: if I saw that guy in the street and he tried coming at me, it'd be done deal.
Yeah. Well, a part of me thinks too, is there an element here that
By the way, the people that I don't mean to interrupt you,
You good?
but the people that he probably thinks he's helping, as in I'm protecting these people, or it's that whole white savior thing.
Yeah, the white savior.
Yeah. If he went to the wrong neighborhood, they wouldn't give a damn about his political opinions. They would just punch. They off. He'd be gone. He'd be offed.
Right. And so, I kind of think along the lines of that too, right? Which is like, it's seemingly the natural process would be that young men would naturally reject everything about Dean Withers. And because it's not happening, it makes me think then, so what is keeping people maybe afraid, and they're afraid to say anything otherwise. But really, is there strong enough social pressures in the younger kind of the younger kids, right? Say like anywhere from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, getting ready to enter into that kind of pubescent era. I kind of am of the belief, and not even of the belief, I know objectively these things are true, that there are significant social pressures against young men to not step outside that line. Do not say you like Andrew Tate. Do not say you want to buy a brand new car. Do not say you want to have 10 women. And I think it's on those grounds that I think that you do end up beating a bunch of young men who are otherwise, maybe too shy or introverted, into a point where they're too afraid to come out of that shell. And ultimately they follow that route the rest of their life, which I think is ultimately damaging. But I do think there are like these extreme kind of, feminist pressures that want to, emasculate men, not in just like the emotional sense, but in like the physical sense and the intellectual sense, which is like removing their initiative, removing their kind of like non-ubiquitous nature, which is like to be unique and always be like the initiator of said action, right? You're the one driving the boat, not the other way around. And I can't help but think that there is some kind of, especially in like an early childhood education, very, very feminized, 6th grade classrooms, 7th grade classrooms, super female energy. And I can't help but think that there is a strong kind of hidden but very present mechanism that is kind of pushing and holding men and gatekeeping these young men from otherwise falling naturally to where they would, just because they're ultimately so afraid of what those social repercussions and social consequences would be if they're outed to like their mother or their father or elsewhere that says, oh hey, this guy watched an Andrew Tate video and thought it was funny. Destroy his life, right? He must hate women. And then you got to kind of like find your way outside of those kind of social consequences.
Yeah. It's funny. Just real quick, I'm gonna catch up on some chats real quick. Girl's daughter said, "Oh, honey, I can make that boy cry. It's sad to see our boys/men so fragile." And that reminded me. A lot of these young men, boys, they don't even know how to speak in public. Their parents speak for them when they're talking to another adult. I would be willing to bet that if they go out to a restaurant, they order for them. Might even cut up their food for them. There's just not that much of like this independent, like throwing your kid to the wolves, like, you know what I mean? Kind of like there used to be this thing in culture where like you become a man and then you go out and experience the world and then you might come back or you might not or whatever. And it's just like everything's so sheltered nowadays that kids, they don't even know how to speak. Like, even in school, now I'm not in school, of course, but from what I understand, what's been relayed to me from teachers is that these kids are all in group chats within the classes and stuff like that. They talk shit on each other. They don't talk to each other. It's all on text on their phone. And so it's literally like even in the same space as each other, and they just won't vocalize the words. It's just all like almost kind of protected by their social media or the phone or just the layer that's put in place. And they just, there's too many like shields covering them. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, what was it? I think it was like in 2023, the Forbes Business Insider release, because they always do one, right? They do this thing where they talk to the top Fortune 500 CEOs and they ask like, what are your top tips on getting hired, right? Or what was the number one thing you saw from candidates this year that they didn't get hired? And I think it was in 2023, it might have been 2024. But the unanimous thing that they said that people weren't getting hired for was eye contact. So like they have these people in interviews, they couldn't even look them in the eyes for longer than 10 seconds because they are so not used to regular social interaction, right? Because everything is migrating to digital platforms. So when they're forced to have to sit for a 30-minute interview with a guy they've never met before, they're like anxious, they're freaking out, they want to do anything to go look at a screen. Where's my phone? Let me look at the weather app, please.
It's like the pacifier. It's like just progressed from one thing to the next.
Right. And it's super unfortunate, this is again a great segue to the Antichrist and Peter Thiel and what he's doing with Palantir, which a lot of people have been blowing the whistle on because they fear that if we were to essentially saddle an AI system on top of our, US government and have it work in tandem and parallel alongside it, we will have essentially completed building the beast system. And this is kind of what you see people fear mongering over what China has, right? Which is cameras everywhere. You get a fine the moment you jaywalk because it knows where you are, where you go to work out, everything, right? Social credit score. Don't say this about the CCP because, next thing you know, you can't buy a house for 5 years because you said one bad thing on social media. And so Peter Thiel is kind of the American version of this, or the Palantir is the American version of this, or is about to be. And that's where a lot of people have these fears at. And so what we have on the outline here, Worrell, if you want to put it on screen, is Peter Thiel was actually asked directly by, I believe the reporter's name was Ross Ramuth, about all of the chatter that people have regarding the fact that he is being pinned as the possible Antichrist, and it's been getting louder and louder the more he's been making pushes for Palantir. And so part of the fears are kind of culminated in the fact that you have with Alex Karp bragging that they implemented these systems in the United Kingdom. And when they implemented the systems in the United Kingdom, they were bragging about how quickly and efficiently they were able to quell dissent. And that was kind of where people kind of get these fears, which is we already have a very, very chaotic political environment, especially as it pertains to getting censored and social media. It's like, and we're going to add on a proliferated system on top of that to make this more, expedited. I think it's, for me, I think the obvious answer is to go, no, thank you, George Orwell. Like, I would not like that to be a part of my government. But what you're seeing from individuals like Laura Loomer and otherwise are cheering it on, and they're pairing that with mass deportations. They're saying, guys, how do you expect we're going to be able to get all the mass deportations we need if we don't have a system that can tell where everybody's going and where they all work all at the same time? So now it's kind of being hitched onto a clear want and mandate from the American people, but being attached with a very extreme, fearful government possible overreach of an AI system that once is attached, you may never be able to unattach it. And so this is kind of like a short gist of an explanation of an introduction to Peter Thiel, co-founder of the PayPal. He's part of the PayPal mafia, Palantir. But here's this clip here being interviewed about the Antichrist.
He's one, and it was not literally Charles Manson.
Okay, but you're just I want to stay with the Antichrist just to end, right? Because you're retreating. You're saying, okay, environmentalism is already pro-stagnation and so on. Okay, let's agree with all that. But we're not living under we're not living under the Antichrist right now. We're just stagnant, right? And you're positing that something worse could be on the horizon that would make stagnation permanent, that would be driven by fear. And I'm suggesting that for that to happen, there would have to be some burst of technological progress that was akin to Los Alamos that people are afraid of. And I guess this is my very specific question for you, right? Is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance and technologies of warfare and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't
so you want to pause it right there?
Great.
I was about to. Go ahead.
So, for one, this is the first thing I would say. What a wild conversation to be having. If someone was to frame to me, right, how do you think about people calling you the Antichrist? I'd be like, whoa, like, who did I murder to get called that, right? Like, what have I done that make people hate me? But the more specific thing is, if you actually pull it back a few seconds, when he's actually asked directly about the fact of what if you're not the Antichrist, but he says something along the lines of like, wouldn't the Antichrist look at what you're doing at Palantir and say, wow, bravo? He smiles, catch it. He smiles like he's being complimented about that. It was a crazy catch for me, but it's like 10 seconds after this point here, if you want to find it.
Okay. I bumped it back a good inch on the line here, so we'll just see what that amounts to.
Word. It shouldn't be too long.
You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools.
There it is.
What is that reaction?
It was a smile and it was a smile, a thought, and a look off into space, into no man's land. He stopped looking at the interviewer.
You caught me. You caught me.
Right.
Right? Is that not what kind of the vibe it gives off? It's like, oh,
it's that. If only you knew.
Right. It's like, don't give me my flowers yet, guys.
Right. Real quick, address this to Tix right here. Yeah, I looked. I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. So yeah, if you posted it in the proper Discord, I'll have a look at it.
That's fine.
He's been saying he wants us to have a look at something that he posted there.
Oh, word. Okay.
Yeah, but here, let's continue with this interview here.
Yeah.
That you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
I mean, isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
There are all these different scenarios. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing.
His horn kind of popped out there. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Just kidding.
I
mean, to be clear, I don't think that's what you're doing either. I'm just interested in how you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but again, there are these different gradations of this we can describe, but is this so preposterous, what I've just told you, as a broad account of the stagnation that the entire world has submitted for 50 years to peace and safetyism? This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, and we've submitted.
Wow. So that's interesting that he knows that. Like,
yeah.
Wow.
So he's using that argument, right? So I actually watched a bit more of that. The clip by itself is wild, but I watched a bit more of it. And so he's basically kind of using the argument that the question's already answered. Will people submit to an AI authority? And the fact that we've already submitted to a weaker version of the Antichrist in terms of the peace and safety, which is, if you look at the majority of the reasons why you're not allowed to do something, why regulation was put here, why regulation on your yard doing this, regulation on your boat doing this, this law being passed here is largely under the guise of for your peace and safety, right? This was kind of the slogan of COVID. For your peace and safety. You can't come outside. You can't operate your business. It's the safe thing to do. Safety. And so he was basically making the argument there that, well, I don't even need to think about, will people submit to an AI authority? He's like, they already submitted to a weaker one for the last 50 years under the guise of peace and safety. And then he does bring up the 1 Thessalonians reference, which does say, the Antichrist will come chanting peace and safety. Like, it's a wild connection. And I think too, the secondary thing is it's wild that he's like got it committed to memory. And then to give some background knowledge too, like Peter Thiel is a very pro-Israel, he's a very pro-Israel person as well. So you have that connection on top of everything as it pertains to where we are at currently, even in the geopolitical environment too. So you have all these kind of threads that kind of touch each other and connect. And at least from my perspective as well too, and I don't even price all the tag, like I'm a Christian nationalist, Christian supremacist, whatever you want to put in there. When you look at the eschatological differences between Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, you can begin to kind of attach these things together, and you can kind of see, and as World probably watches, what's that channel's name? Sling and Stone?
Sling and Stone?
Yeah. Going into like
Sling and Stone. Detail. He's got a good channel.
Right. About these kind of like these prophecies. And you have where in Christianity, it's like, what we perceive as the Antichrist is actually like the complete opposite in Judaism. And so you have these kind of like opposing views of like Messiah versus Antichrist, and this kind of willingness to bring it about. And, you know, Sling and Stone goes into detail about like the red heifers, the ritual to rebuild the temple. And you have all of this happening as the kind of hidden sub backdrop, while we're also bombing the absolute, you know, shit out of everybody in the Middle East for the behest of Israel. And so you kind of connect these things together where it's like, and as some people have, right, with Sovereign Brawl and Dark Donnie, where they go, is the big picture here that everything that we're doing is essentially a hidden attempt to bring about the, you know, the Jewish Messiah or the Christian Antichrist? Because everything we have done, even if you remove conspiratorial out of it, it would speak to that's the direction we're heading towards. And then you can kind of see, even in like the recent peace proposal with Gaza, I think it's like a ceasefire action more technically between Israel and Gaza in the West Bank, is you have this kind of connection here as well, which is kind of getting the Al-Aqsa Mosque back under the certain kind of ownership, so people would be able to be involved with it as well. So it's kind of all these running things here too, which I'm sure might be, you know, might be news to you. I know you said you didn't know much about Peter Thiel beforehand, but it's some of my fears, which is, you know, putting a name to the kind of the, you know, the puppeteers, right? Which is, to me, the longer I've looked at it, the more it looks like there is a strong eschatological, you know, fingers on the puppets, if you will. And a lot of it you can kind of trace back to having Christian roots, trace back to having Islamic roots, or being traced back to having Jewish roots. And so when you look at that and you kind of see as well everything else that kind of downstream from that, that's kind of like where my purview is at. That's kind of like how I'm viewing things, is from that lens of a Christian when I look at the world. But I guess, what do you kind of think of that? Have you heard of those kind of theories and narratives being told?
Oh man, I guess I don't know where to start with that. Well, let's be specific. Are you talking about like when he was talking about the Antichrist and the way he was kind of acting, like reacting to that, for example?
Right. So you have that, and it's more so with Palantir, right? And the beast and the system, like the mark of the beast, right? And so people have begin to interpret that as maybe this Neuralink, right? That was kind of the beginning, right? Elon Musk is the Antichrist, because he's going to be the one who will usher in Neuralink, where everyone puts a chip in their body. Is that the mark of the beast? Or now with Palantir and Peter Thiel, is the mark of the beast going to be that you're in the Palantir system, right? Whatever that, you know, because I think they're now floating from RFK. He wants everybody in America in a couple of years to be wearing wearables, is what he said, which has like your health conditions on there, which is another thing that I've not spent much time looking at.
Right. Another thing that they can steal off of us for free and make another AI for.
Yeah. But rather loosely, that each of these figures, Elon, Bill Gates, and Peter Thiel, roughly do have the characteristics with biblical backing to it, that they do match up with what the definition would be when the Bible says you will see an Antichrist before the second coming of Jesus. And so Christians, taking it literally, go, well, if we're close to the end times, then that would mean that some of these people would have to be the Antichrist. So who are they, if we take what we believe to be literal? Now, there are some people who don't take the literal interpretation. They take it maybe a bit more of a metaphorical interpretation. But just that's been a lot more chatter has been speaking to that, right? Because Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Peter Thiel are all in the last like 10 years. But then, you know, you look at earlier Antichrist chatter, and it's not since like Napoleon Bonaparte. And so it's clear like more people are obviously thinking we're in the end times now than what was exhibited maybe like 200, 300 years ago.
Yeah, so I think this is just part of repeated history. And you know, say what you will. Like I don't know your guys' perception on how long we've actually been here, like us people,
Yeah,
us
right,
as
millions or
humanity.
5,000 or right.
Like I don't know, and I don't really care. I mean, it could be 5,000, a million. I don't whatever. And my thing is, when we talk about like lost civilizations, which I really just think those lost are just erased history, not lost. They're actually just erased on purpose. It's intentional.
Yeah.
Right. when
when
they
it
burned
comes to
the Library of Alexandria, it was more than just barbarians or whatever. It was more
yeah, I
of a
mean, yeah,
9/11.
Aquaman exists. Aquaman existed at one point. But the fact of the matter, though, is that when you're looking at the chip thing, yeah, it's demonic or whatever you want to call it to the point of our modern how we would interpret what demons are, right? Back then, something had to have happened that was sort of on the same level, right? The same level, but just not
Yeah.
in our what our understanding.
Mhm.
I mean, I
this
could go
point in
I
time,
could
by
go
the way.
down the whole road with how drugs are and how certain media is and why that was kind of pushed on us for the last century. And I'm talking about like medias and like we went from movie theaters to television shows to music, certain music to like we're here
Right.
right now. I think it all built up to this point. And he said like 50 years.
Right.
Okay, let's go 50 years back. Let's go back. Like, what year would be 50 years ago? What is he talking about? I don't
Right.
think he's like even being random with that number. I think he's specifying to something had to have happened. Of course, that would have been behind the scenes, and I believe a lot of things happen behind the scenes every decade. Every decade had something going on.
Yeah.
And it was building up to this point. This is also why I don't think anyone should be surprised when when the cell phone era came around, to the iPhone era or the smartphone era, I should say,
Yeah.
came around. It's building up to a point where it all comes down and globalism, the thing that Alex Jones is talking about for forever. He's talking
Right.
about globalism. And I'm not even particularly a Alex Jones fan, but when you hear someone saying stuff like that, you should listen. You should listen and be like, okay, let's see where this is going. And that was back in the 90s. So he was giving us a 30-year head start. It's unfortunate,
Right.
though, because the majority of people did not listen, did not give a damn. And
Right.
we're here where we are now. I don't see, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I will say this. I think if you say no, I'm not going to do the chip thing. I'm not going to do, I'm not going to do the Nicole Kidman saying we should eat bugs and live in tubes. type
Yeah.
of
And live
thing.
in pods. Yeah.
Yeah, the pods. It's
Yep.
like, I think they'll just delete you, honestly.
Yeah.
And I have speculations. I have speculations on what's gonna
Well, that's what
happen.
it says in the Bible will happen if you don't take the mark. You will be hunted. You won't be able to trade, buy. You'll be basically excommunicated from the community of the world.
But also just remember they have bunkers right now underground. So
Yeah. Right. With what was it? Rick Ross built one. The same time Mark Zuckerberg built one. The same time Roseanne Barr built one. That like 8 billionaires at the same day started construction on underground bunkers. Like
they
wow.
have underground trains that can go like bullets. And it reminds me of that. I don't want to go off tangent, but have you ever seen that movie Midnight Meat Train? It had what's his name? Bradley Cooper. It was Bradley Cooper was in it, and it had that hot babe. I forget her name. Leslie something. She was in or was it Leslie something? She was in Talladega Nights, the wife.
Okay, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So Midnight Meat Train. If you haven't, now I feel like I'm spoiling the movie, but I don't care. It came out in 2008,
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it by now, spoiler alert.
Yeah. I guess I can't really talk about it without spoiling it, right? So, but near the end of the film, I should say near the end of the film, you find out that the train, the Midnight Meat Train, goes down, goes underground, kind of like that hollow earth theory, right?
Yeah.
Find out the main killer, the main slasher villain or whatever is actually just a host or not host for the parasite, and the parasite some alien stuff. And it kind of reminds me of the black eye panda theory thing with they put something in your eye and it makes you all weird and controlled, and that's what they do with the killer. You find out the killer is kind of just doing it involuntarily. It's just not, and
Oh, it's one of those CIA. What is it called?
Black
Oh, now
site
I'm drawing a blank. Say it again.
or black site.
No, the like what the school shooters are and stuff. What's it called? The psyop.
the MK Ultra.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it like
That
an
type of
MK
stuff.
Ultra type thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's more of it because the horror movie. They add more of an sci-fi alien type of
Yeah.
backdrop to it, but it's
Right.
Okay.
that's kind of where I'm looking at with like this. I swear, it's like Hollywood is the psyop. It is telling you,
Oh
like,
yeah, it's
all the
programming.
time what we're doing and what we're
Right.
preparing. We're preparing for all you peasants out there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
If
funny
we-
because when it comes to TV, they call them programs. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
what they used to call
Programming,
TV
yeah.
shows. So it's programming. It literally is.
Exactly.
But I want to go back real quick. Atlas, Titan made a comment, and I wanted to just quote it, but he says, where'd it go? It's up here a little bit. Anyways, he said that the evil one always keeps an antichrist on earth, and it's because nobody knows except for God when the end comes, right? So the evil one has to always keep one or more ready and waiting, kind of. And I've never heard of that or thought of that concept until that's like a new concept to me. Just recently, well, I'd say like probably a year ago, Gerald from Crowder mentioned that, and it really rung a bell to me because, they say Hitler was the guy and this and that. And, you can go all through all these communists in history that were so evil and did such terrible things, but then they ended up dying. And you're like, well, I guess that's not really who they were. But the fact is that since nobody knows, the evil one has to keep one or multiples on deck. So it could be, anybody. I still have a theory that it might be this Mr. Beast dude. I mean, look at his name. And, it even says in the Bible, they'll restore sight. What has Mr. Beast done? He's restored people's sight. He's literally performed miracles, and he's loved by everyone generally. You know what I mean? Like, you can't really hate on the guy too much, right? He makes family friendly content and all that stuff. And so he kind of fits that mold of the description, but it could be a Peter Thiel. It could be, and that's the thing. It's got to have to be somebody that kind of widely is loved. I think is kind of how he'll rise to power, is how it was written. And so,
I'll just say this: you can't make it to that top YouTuber, celebrity. It doesn't matter what it is, right?
it was Barney in the 90s.
The type of celebrity you are, right? YouTubers are still celebrities, so you have to do something. You have to give up something of yourself or someone else to get to that top. Mr. Beast definitely up there. Same with back when Fred was a thing, and PewDiePie and all these guys. I know a lot of people like to think that these people are honest, gamers, and they're the people kind of like the people from Jackass. Everyone thought Jackass were just some random dudes going to jump off stuff and get themselves into the situations, whatever, get beat up, whatever.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you look at someone like Steve-O, you realize no, they're all bought out, and they're all in the same system. It's just every decade, and that's why I was talking about the decades earlier. I was talking about how every decade it was leading up to this.
Right.
Every decade, there's some sort of new form of media that brings you in, whether it's comic books, slasher films, heavy metal music, doesn't matter. It leads up to a certain point because they want you to separate. It's all about counterculture, which I think counterculture is actually a psyop itself. I'm just saying, I really do think.
Controlled opposition.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's meant to make you hate somebody else who hates your culture. These celebrities, they do the same thing. They're telling you who to hate, who to not like,
Right.
And it's unfortunate because 99.9% of people fall for it. So that's why we're here where we are now.
Right. And it's funny because, you get some of these kind of the pushback is this very weak in my opinion, but you do get pushback of individuals who'd say, Well, no, like, you can't have conspiracies that big because somebody would have to say something.
Hmm.
And the reality is like we have day by day, we have more and more evidence and proof that these conspiracies do happen all the time. And they're carried out by large organizations, small organizations, high profile people all the time, right? You can go with something as simple as like Hollywood, right? Harvey Weinstein, how long was he doing that with the Me Too movement and assaulting those women? No one said a word for years.
I think he was actually maybe just trading favor for favor, but
right. I mean, yeah, you
now
have
in
that
hindsight,
going on.
20.
Right. Go to Diddy, right? Go to that whole thing, right? Apparently involving like LeBron and other individuals like this girl.
You should look up Tony Podesta and Chester Bennington. They're related.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Podesta, Bennington. And then you have what was the big one I was gonna say? And like
There's
Epstein.
Chris Cornell. Oh yeah, Epstein.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have like a litany of like even just in the recent like 5-10 years of all these going on. So I think that the argument that somebody would say something, I think is ultimately defeated by the fact of, well, here's about 10 of them that we know actually happened that were involving a lot of large high profile people who kept it under wraps for years at a time. But I did want to say too, because we are getting closer to the end of only about 40 minutes left. Hard segue here. I want to open it up to you. And I want you to tell us, where do cryptids fit in alongside all of this, right?
Yeah.
The Nephilim, the fallen angels, where do they fit into this massive picture we kind of have drawn?
So this goes from like dark to fun, I guess, but it can still be dark. I mean, it really is all dark, to be
We'll take
honest.
fun.
I don't know. It's fun because it's like whatever, but like you don't see it every day. Obviously, Sasquatch, you don't see that every day. But I will say this. I think the cryptids, the certain folklore, sort of myths that you've heard, and by the way, all throughout history, in all types of societies, not just America, but just in general, there's maybe some truth to them. I'm not one to say like Skyrim is real life.
Okay,
I'm not saying Skyrim is here, but just to give you sort of a tease of that that Tolkien, when he did Lord of the Rings, he took pages from the Vatican. Vatican gave him some pages, and that's how he made Lord of the Rings. And then you have to like think about Lord of the Rings for a minute. And you're like, okay, let's see. Lord of the Rings, we got ogres, trolls, we got giants, we got elves, elves, you got all these type of creatures. And people are like, yeah, that's fake, that's false, that's just it's for kids, man. It's for kids. It's for bedtime story type of stuff.
Right.
But then you actually get down to the nitty-gritty. And that's when cryptids come into play. I think Sasquatch, for example, I'll bring him up for like 5 seconds, but Sasquatch is that phenomenon that people have made fun of for, forever. And like those Jack Links type of commercials with the beef jerky or whatever.
Messing with Sasquatch.
You got Sasquatch, and you got that show Finding Bigfoot, which is just Hollywood people making fun of Bigfoot. I mean, it really is. Right. They go to every city and everyone's like, "Oh, I saw Bigfoot." Yeah, it's literally meant to make you not believe in Bigfoot. It's actually the opposite. They're trying to be like, "No, Bigfoot is stupid."
Yeah, spoof the idea.
Yeah, so
fun of it.
Yeah, and Finding Bigfoot was a psyop. It was because
my favorite one of those was the Mountain Monsters one, by the way.
Oh yeah.
They're all the redneck dudes.
Oh yeah, that's funny as hell. I'll be honest, that was funny as hell. I love that.
They'd catch them. They'd set up the big ass trap in the middle of the woods, and it was all fake. But yeah, it was entertaining. Sorry, I derailed you.
Yeah, because wasn't that the same program as Duck Dynasty?
Wasn't
it the same type of
like
not the same guys, but the same program,
like the same channel?
What were they on? True Life, A&E?
I was gonna say I'm not sure what
was
they
it, like
on.
Discovery maybe.
It was maybe Discovery or A&E, one of those two.
Yeah,
I don't have cable anymore, so I can't even remember the channels or anything like that, really. But I remember watching those dudes.
I'll
They're
look
crap.
it up while you're talking.
But like, by the way, the best, my opinion, the best cryptid show is Monster Quest. I think Monster Quest was the coolest thing ever. It's got like 5 seasons. It's great. Every single episode's about a different cryptid. Anything from Sasquatch to Dogman to Thunderbirds to Mothman to, you know, Jersey Devil, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so I do believe when they make these shows or these movies, cartoon depictions of these creatures, they're trying to make you think, ha ha ha, people actually believe in this, ha ha ha.
Travel Channel.
Yeah, Travel. There you go.
Sorry, I was reading the comment there. Appreciate you.
Travel Channel. Okay. But like that, it would make sense because, you know, I made this argument in other podcasts I've been on and other, you know, other channels or whatever, but they don't need to shoot you because you said you saw Bigfoot. They just have to have 99.9% of the population to think you're a joke.
Right.
They just need somebody to fire you from your job for bringing up Bigfoot. That's all they need. And since that is what it is, like if the majority of people think you're a joke, they have no need to take you out. You know what I mean? They don't have to do any of this like crazy science, you know.
Yeah. Well, and a fantastic side point to that, this is why we don't see actual real assassinations anymore. Because they don't need to actually do it. It's character assassination. They'll destroy you, your reputation so badly that there's nothing you can do to come back from it. And
I guess like giants, I guess like giants is what I was kind of like proposing with the Nephilim and all that. And I'll be kind of like quick with the whole history lesson about that, maybe. But like, depending on what you actually want to hear, I guess like, do you want to hear the biblical, like into the where we are now, like the physical sort of?
Yeah, because that's one thing I'm not like. I only have a loose understanding of like the fallen angels, right? And like the 7 watchers, the 200 fallen, Mount Hermon. Go into detail about that.
I'll just say this. I'll make it quick. I'll be really quick for everybody. I'll give you the synopsis, you know, of the movie.
You're good. You're the expert, brother.
So, as it said, fallen angels came down, screwed the women. They were doing this to defy God because God pissed them off. Whether they were like in cahoots with Satan or not, I don't know. Whatever. They went down, did what they did. They procreate with the women. It's like, how do angels procreate with women? Easy. They just make themselves look like dudes. They make themselves look like Chads and Tyrones. They do their business. The women have babies. All of a sudden, those babies grow up to be 50 feet tall. And by the way, let me kind of space it out for you guys in this timeline. It used to be titans. These were titans, not giants. Titans. Titans were like 50 to 100 feet tall. And by the way, I personally don't believe that existed, but I'm going to get to where I think it did become a little more plausible, you know, practical. But let's say for the sake of this, right? 50 to 100 feet tall. So this is crazy, right? God saw all that happening. The flood happens. You get rid of the Nephilim. The majority of the Nephilim die. But guess what? All the while that the Nephilim were there, the Rephaim happened. Rephaim is the descendants of the Nephilim. Rephaim are not as big. Rephaim are about, let's say, guesstimation 10 to 30 feet tall.
Yeah.
You know, it happens a lot too when you look at genetics in general. It's like sometimes your dad's like 6'5", but you end up being 6'2". Just kind of look at it in that way. Like you don't, because maybe he married a woman that was 5'3", and that's what got you down a bit. And then if you continue that pattern where you keep dating a woman, for example, shorter than you, that's just what happens. And so you look at it with giants. Yeah, they were titans. Now they're the Rephaim. Rephaim turn into, and by the way, Rephaim, I don't know how into the Bible you guys are or whatever, or into any of that stuff, but do you know who King Og is?
Yeah, King Og is in both the Tanakh and the Old Testament. He's largely described as he was like one of the original giants, right? Like
the last of the Rephaim.
Okay. Right.
Last of the Rephaim.
Yeah.
So he's the last of the Rephaim. Let's just say that's true. So Moses killed him, or Moses and his guys killed him and his guys, or whatever.
Right.
Then you got Goliath, David and Goliath.
Yeah. Philistine.
Goliath was said to be about 9.5 feet tall. A lot of skeptics say, no, that didn't happen, or it's gigantism, which is not the same as being a giant. A giant is a completely different species than a human
being, right?
Yeah. I swear to God, how many times I've had these like arguments, but I wanted to say it because I swear every time I've had them with somebody, they just don't get it. They just think humans are the only thing that exists, apparently. But anyways, the fact of the matter is, you got the people like Goliath, who are descendant of the Rephaim. So once again, another descendants, right? It's like you're not going to get to 30 feet ever again. Now you're in that 9-foot range.
Okay.
His brother, he had a brother, he had 2 parents, he had kids. They were all giants. They were taller than the average person. David and everybody else that was around at that time, yeah, sure, they were like 5 to 5'8". That was the relative size, whatever. People were shorter back then. I actually don't even believe that, by the way. I actually think we've always been sort of relatively the same. It's just we had less people. That's my argument. We had less people, so it makes it seem like there weren't that many tall people back then. But whatever.
Just less people in general.
Yeah, just less people. So, just the probability of who's going to be the tallest at the time, whatever. Anyways, now we get to the fact that we get today. And at the Kandahar giant back in 2002, 2003, military went to Afghanistan. It was pretty much the first time, right, to go over there and be all like, we're occupying the area. We're kind of like, we don't know the culture. We don't know anything about this. We go over there, and a unit that was supposed to be where they were, I don't know, just I guess investigating an area.
Yeah.
Haven't talked back, haven't radio called back. So it's like, okay, well, we're the new unit. Let's go over there. And by the way, you can listen to this whole thing on Coast to Coast AM, which is where the original caller came in, who I believe was either the pilot who carried the giant or the one of the guys who actually shot him.
Interesting.
There's also a story on one of the Mr. Ballin podcast shows. It's dang it, it's under, if you guys are familiar with Mr. Ballin, he's a storyteller on YouTube here. I mean, he's huge. I think everybody probably knows who Mr. Ballin is. He's like 10 million subs. But
right.
He's got other shows under his branch, and one of them is a guy that does just military stories, and he goes into very pretty good detail about what happened with the Battle of the Kandahar Giant, the smell, how they flew him out of the area, all kinds of stuff. It's really good detail.
And he was, by the way, and just to wrap it up, I want to wrap it up because I know I keep talking, but
no, you're good. You're good. You're good.
No, I wanted to kind of compress it. It's really hard to compress all this stuff, but like the Kandahar Giant, and because I was talking about the height thing, right? As it kind of gets, as time goes on, they do get shorter. But the Kandahar Giant, 13 to 15 feet tall, red hair, 6 digits, fingers, toes. It dressed like someone who would have been around back 100 years ago, like in that land, like somebody who just kind of, I guess, like a scavenger sort of feral person.
Yeah, I remember some of the descriptions talking about he had like reddish hair. It was like a fiery like red hair, and regular red hair. And
then when you compare to the Kandahar Giant to the Solomon Island giants, Solomon Island, very isolated islands that, by the way, this was around World War II. Okay. So now I'm switching from Afghanistan to, over there.
Yeah.
And over there, red-haired giants. Yep. Their skin tone was the only thing that was different. They were darker toned.
Right.
But they, by the way, cave systems. The Kandahar Giant cave system.
Right.
So when you look at the Solomon Island giants, once again, soldiers, by the way, both American, Japanese, like both sides, all these sides, right?
Yeah.
They saw the same thing. They got killed by them. They got like terrorized by them.
Yeah.
You know, we know how it was. You know, like what at least from what we heard, it's like this is a scary time. You're in the middle of nowhere, people shooting at you, but all of a sudden you hear howling and screaming, but it's not your guy. It's someone with a spear trying to kill you, type of thing. Then go to Native American here in America. Doesn't matter if it's the Cherokee, doesn't matter what tribe we're talking about. They all had to band together because they all talked about red-haired giants trying to eat us, eat our kids, take our women to breed. You know, it's, you know, and around the same time, by the way, this is even more interesting. Sasquatch. They were like, Sasquatch was our enemy, but then the Sasquatch were getting pissed off because the red-haired giants were, you know, screwing their women.
Right.
So what actually happened is the Sasquatch, I mean, it sounds like a movie. I know it's crazy, but the Sasquatch and the Native Americans had to work together to kill off the red-haired giants.
Yeah, the American, the American.
And where we now call Nevada, there's a Lovelock Cave. That's where they killed them. They took them out. They burned them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've actually heard of Lovelock Cave actually being.
So that's my point, is from the generational, giants have always been around. Who knows if they are still? I don't know. I'm not going to go and find out myself, but
right. You have to come back. Well, it's funny, you know, and that's some of the stuff I glad you brought that up because so this is, I have only recently kind of been brought into the what's the word?
Yeah, what's in the Grand Canyon? That's a good question there, last generation.
Yeah, right. The whole like the idea of the Nephilim. And so some of my first places to look, I actually went to the series that Joel Webben did with, and Lord forgive me, I can't remember the guy's name he did it with, but they did have a joint kind of little podcast series together, and they explored the Nephilim much exactly in the same way that you laid out, which is they explored the fact that it was like these 200 fallen angels who specifically, it was two things, right? It was the fact that they were irritated at God because they were given such great power, but like very little authority to use it. And then at the same time, they were almost like envious of the fact that human males were given these counterparts, these females. And so like they got envious, and ultimately they all fell to earth. And like he had said, they disguised themselves as men, you know, took some of the women. And their argument, though, goes back to biological and the Joel Webben podcast, which is, well, what you would expect to see then is that first child of that woman would have been 50% angel, 50% human. And then from there, as the breeding occurs over time, you get 20% angel to 80% human. And now we're probably where we're at now is there's probably some people even still alive today that have like, you know, some percentage, you know, some minor percentage of human, but these cryptids that are still around might be like the 8%, you know, angel,
right?
You know, 92% human variations that are still kind of left around.
To be fair, I think Baron Trump has Nephilim DNA.
Because he's so
he's
tall.
a time traveler. He's a time traveler, right? Didn't they write that book about him in the 19th or the 18th century?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mr. Baron Trump.
Baron Trump's Adventures or whatever it was. And by the way, that channel that I was talking about is called Wartime Stories.
Yeah. I love that channel. Yeah.
Wartime Stories. Interesting.
The one that does the animations, right, with the story.
Yeah. That's under he's under the Mr. Ballin umbrella. And
I didn't know they were related. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Mr. Ballin started them off, I believe. But
interesting.
I think they were like war buddies back in the like military buddies at first.
But yeah, I think they keep the giant thing under wraps, and you know, call me whatever you want after I say this, but you know, people call me incel for a reason, but I guess you can call me incel in another way too after this. But I honestly think they're undermining all religion, not just Christianity, but all religion, because it is like a secular sort of thing going on. And people call it Satanism, they call it Judaism, because you know, Jews aren't really religious, they're very atheistic actually. Right. But when you look at all of those, they don't want and this may trigger people. whether you believe in dinosaurs or not, I think, they're finding giant bones way before dinosaurs. And then suddenly they started saying, oh, T-Rex exists, but not this giant human femur we found. That's part of a T-Rex. Like that. They started
Right.
doing these things where, and that's, by the way, same time period, Smithsonian happened. Smithsonian takes the bones, deletes them, yeets them away. You never hear about them again. People say, hey, I gave because this back, by the way, once again, boomers gave the government, did let the government do whatever they want because they thought the government was in the best interest. If they were smart enough, they would have kept that crap, shut their mouth, put it in a freezer for like 5 decades or something, and then make a YouTube channel and talk about it. But unfortunately, the majority of giant bones are gone.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
but
you also
some of
have the factor of the Leviathan.
Yeah.
I believe God killed one of the Leviathan to feed Moses and his people in the desert at one point. I could be wrong. I believe I just read something like that. So Leviathan could have been like a dragon type. So then you also see like a dinosaur bones. Just going back to your point that they could have been there way beforehand. These bones that they're finding, it could have been giants and Leviathan.
Can I ask you guys, how far do you guys go with that stuff? I don't know necessarily cryptid stuff, but let's just say in general, the conspiracy that could also bring cryptids into the mix. But how far do you guys sort of go until you say, nah?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, largely for me, the last couple of years has been a reframing of how I've kind of viewed things. Right, I used to view it in a sense of like a less religious, like you had just framed it, right? Maybe more so of like there's some really bad, like money hungry people, and there's some decent people. To where I'm at now is like, I do fully believe there's like a legitimate like battle of good versus evil, and it takes place across a bajillion different mediums, and it's all, and I think partly the reason what you had said there, which is to remove the religious aspect, right? The demoralization, if you will, and not in the sense of like make someone feel sad, but literally remove the morals of the society, right? The deracination of such beliefs from people, I think is largely in an attempt to continually blind people about the fact that there are deeply more wonderful, spiritual, and in a looser sense, magical things that happen on this planet, that if they basically beat down, dumbify, and remove the morals of the people, they'll never go search for something they never knew even existed in the first place. And that's kind of where I take it. So I'd probably go a lot further than even the average person would go. And as long as it's even like, somewhat, biblically can be interpreted as making sense in terms of what the Bible prescribes, then I'm more than likely going to at least find it plausible. Not sure if I'd give a full belief on it yet.
So what's your opinion on it? I'll say this. I don't think flat earth is a thing, but like, I guess I'm a globetard.
I root for flat earth to be a thing, but I don't think it is.
Right.
Yeah. But
I mean, this is the thing.
where...
I could care less if it was one or the other. But in my opinion, the only way I could talk about, for example, hollow earth or prison planet theory is that it would have to be a globe.
Right. Well, I'll tell you my theory of flat earth, since you mentioned it.
Right.
I think the earth is round. I mean, they're claiming they just flew B-2 bombers both directions around the planet just last week, right? And that was part of the psyop. Maybe not. Maybe that's part of the psyop that's going on in the grander scale. And I'm constantly adjusting my views to what I think is truth. I'm always on, seeking for more wisdom, right? I think as soon as I think I've figured it out, that's when you truly don't know anything. But I like the flat earth concept in that if the earth is flat under a dome, it 100% suggests a builder or a creator. And so for a government of government or whatever, like it says in the Bible that this place is really like the evil one's domain. It's not really Like we're just here and we're waiting for the new Earth to come, be rebuilt and stuff.
Yeah.
And so in the
So-
meantime,
yeah.
it's his like where he's dwelling. And so what would be the best thing to do, which would be to tell you as an individual that you are just one human being on this gigantic planet. This planet is a part of this gigantic solar system. The solar system is a part of this gigantic galaxy, and this galaxy is a grain of sand in the cosmos of all the galaxies, right? So that makes you feel like nothing. You are irrelevant under that philosophy. But the opposite, this place is created, thus you were put here for a purpose, and it directly lends like credibility to your life. You know what I mean? Like reason and credibility to your life. And I do think that the earth is, I'm part of me hopes that it's flat. I hope it's flat. You know what I mean? But I do think that it's round. But I mean, it could be a psyop. And who we're trusting is the scientists. This is the same scientists that have told us trust the science for our whole lives, or what? You know what I mean? So as soon as I
because let's say it is flat, could Hollow Earth in your world work like in that type of?
I haven't looked into like Hollow Earth or Donut World or Donut Earth or whatever. I've looked into like the true north, the black hole sun, that type of stuff. I like how I'm intrigued by how the flat Earth maps look, and when you track that with flight patterns and some of these things that don't make sense, which is the inefficiency of some of these flights that they take, if it really is a globe Earth, whereas if it's a flat Earth, it's actually it's a straight line from place to place.
So do you think there's ice walls? Do you think there's places where you're not allowed to go there because there is nothing to?
Well, if it would be under a dome, then there would be an outer barrier. I don't know if you'd call it an ice wall. And I like to even go.
It depends how
further and say that Elon is trying to break through the dome, with his
well, okay, I guess I would go into the moon landing is fake.
Didn't happen.
Stanley Kubrick, yada yada thing. I mean,
we never landed on the moon.
Yeah, and that's its own thing. But like, I did kind of want to backtrack just because we were talking about the Nephilim.
Sure. You said flat Earth, and I got all giddy. So
no,
my
that's
bad.
fine. Hey, man, I'm not one of those like scared globetards that starts like crying because someone said the Earth's flat.
I just keep an open mind. I'm constantly trying to learn about everything, but I do stay rooted in the Bible, and I do believe that is the one truth that we can trust.
So I
will say that
because I told you, Atlas, before. I do have books, and one of them is right here called. Is that inverted, or can you see what that says?
Yeah, see it. The Field Guide to Bigfoot and Other Mystery Primates by Lauren Coleman and Patrick Hugh.
This right here and this right here is my favorite. True Giants.
True Giants.
Let's see if I can.
Is Gigantopithecus still alive?
And it's Lauren Coleman again. So,
and Lauren Coleman again. Okay.
So I follow Lauren Coleman on X, but also I've talked to him for a little, just small talk. But
it's a guy.
He did a show, Monster Quest. That was talking about earlier.
Okay, I like that.
He's done a lot of the old cryptozoology sort of documentaries back in the day, whether it be Bigfoot, Mothman, whatever. But when they did the True Giants stuff like this, they got into some crazy, and it's crazy for the average person because the average person doesn't even believe in Bigfoot. So once you start talking about giants, that's like, whoa, now you're going off the radar. You're going Super Saiyan 4. I can't even get to Super Saiyan. It's like that type of thought process. So, and what's I guess the crazy thing with like for example, the Field Guide to the Bigfoot stuff, they do talk about neo-giants, and neo-giants, for example, is what people think Bigfoot is. Bigfoot and Sasquatch would be small. They're smaller than a Kandahar giant, smaller than a Rephaim, smaller than a Goliath.
Yeah. So they're like the descendant of the descendant of the descendant.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, it's like, Bigfoot. And by the way, I got in an argument with somebody just yesterday about this, but he was like, Bigfoot can get to 15 feet tall. I'm like, that's not Bigfoot. Bigfoot is a 7 to 9 foot, maybe 9 foot. 9 foot's like pushing it. That's
Right.
like if you and I were able to get.
That's like the shack of the
Yeah.
Bigfoot.
Yeah,
so like,
Bigfoot's like closer to us than it is the giant.
yeah. So, but when you talk about giants, we're talking about like.
Have a good evening, Last Generation. Thanks for stopping in.
Sorry, what?
Oh, I was just saying good night to Last Generation. My mistake. Somebody was saying goodbye. Interrupted you there.
I think people like just mistaken Bigfoot and giants a lot. They think Bigfoot is a giant. I'm like, no, he's not, because the terminology is true giants. That's just the terminology we use today.
Yeah.
And they've been around. Whether they exist now or no, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's a little far-fetched, right? Because once again, Bigfoot is already far-fetched to many people. But when you say a giant exists, because the first thing that comes to mind is Jack and the Beanstalk and Paul Bunyan and you know
all of the American folklore of it. Yeah.
But then it's like, well, let me ask you this. What was the mask I was just wearing before this?
Spider-Man.
Cool. So how does Spider-Man? How did we get to Spider-Man? What reference did we have to create Spider-Man? Or Stan Lee? When Stan Lee was around, what did he need as a reference to create Spider-Man?
Man, it would have had to have been. I mean, it would have just had to have been some large spider, right? It would have had to have been a concept.
So a spider, Batman, a bat. It's like there's certain archetypes, there's certain like references that we need to create things.
Yeah, for the inspiration.
Yeah, it's like you look at things, you need inspiration. How the hell do you have Bigfoot if you've never seen a Bigfoot? Like how do you see a giant if you've never seen a giant? Humans do not create things unless they have reference to it, and that could be superheroes, that could be horror villains, that could be. I mean, hell, look at Michael Myers. What's his mask?
Right.
What is the mask? William Shatner.
Right.
If it wasn't for Star Trek, we would not have Michael Myers. I mean, that's crazy, right? It blows people's minds, but it's the same concept. Giants could not exist unless somebody saw something at one point or another. Maybe not anymore. I'll give them that. Maybe science is right, and there's no more Bigfoot, there's no more giants, but was there at a point in time where they did exist? And I say yes. They existed, and guess what? We killed them off.
And that's one thing I've actually thought about too, which is like when I think of the ones that are like
and
Godzilla.
By the way, the Patterson Gimlin film is 100% legit.
Word. Okay. Word. Because I think of like, Godzilla, and it's like, I don't buy that. But I think of something like the Chupacabra and how unique that is, and like what you see these kind of photos of the kind of the concept of it. And it's like, it's so out there. You think of the things like the Wendigos, right? And the concept, again, it's like, it's so out there. It's like, where would have been able to pull the inspiration from it? Where the other ones like Mothman, Godzilla, King Kong is like no inspiration. It's just a bigger version of it, right? What if what if the ape was just fucking huge, right? What if the lizard was just effing huge? What if the moth was just effing huge? And so that's what makes me think less or so on some of those. And one thing I actually forgot to do, because I wanted to actually bring in reference to some of the stuff you had talked about, because I did have the King Og reference in here. Let me make sure I can find it actually. Because it's in Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 11, Og of Bashan, a giant. And it writes, for only Og, king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the Raphaites, which I'm assuming is the same thing as Raphaim, or maybe it's...
I think depending on the translation.
Okay, word.
Okay.
So part of the was left of the remnant of the Rephaites, so the last of the Rephaim. His bed was decorated with iron and was more than 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. It is still in Rabbah of the Ammonites. And then the context there is obviously he's being described as a giant based on the size of his bed. And so approximately that would have been about 13.5 feet long, which puts him on track again of being shorter than the average size giant, but would make sense if he is one of the last ones left. And we're going into the next descendant.
And ask yourself, how long is your bed when you go to sleep?
What is mine? Maybe like 7 feet, 8 feet long, something like that.
And how tall are you? How tall are you?
Yeah, 6 foot.
Yeah, so and you need that space. Like you
Yeah.
need that extra sort of
Right.
feet
So he's
inches,
probably
whatever.
11 feet then, closer to
So
like 11 and a half feet long then.
so if the bed, what would you say the bed was?
It's
Or
13 and a half feet long approximately.
yeah, so this dude could have been like 10, 12, who knows, right?
Yeah.
And people who say that's impossible. And by the way, I hate that whole like law of cubism, or what's that law of weight and height, the gravity. I forget what it's called, but I think it's BS.
You're thinking of the law of mass?
No, there's like a word. I hear people say it all the time. Like every time I've gotten a conversation with somebody or argument with this like giants or anything like this,
Yeah.
it was they always get into this thing like, oh well, the law of it has to do with gravity. Like if you get to, it's why like
Like
gigantism.
Newton's law or something?
Wait, what?
Is it like Newton's law or something like that?
I don't know.
I don't even know what Newton's law is, but it sounds like, is that what you're saying? Like something like
No.
that?
Well,
It's your height and like your mass and your weight. There's people
Oh,
who
okay.
say giants can't exist unless your
Oh.
legs look like damn like trunks of a tree.
Oh, I
Like,
see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
right. It would have been, which would be the law of mass, right? Which is like the density factor in terms
Yeah.
of
But
what you get to be that size.
but my point is they're assuming it's just giant humans,
Oh, I see.
Right.
and that's what
that's what-
annoys me.
and I
That's
agree
what
with that.
annoys me. It's like
Because
they
that's
don't-
when you would come in where they would say like, well, if it was a human that size, their heart would have had to have been this big and it would have had to have
Yes.
been this, which is, I get what you're saying, which is if they're actually not humans, these are actually half angel hybrids. They're probably not following the same rule set as normal human beings are.
And
So who
even-
knows what
even-
properties they have?
Yeah, and
That's
even
true.
if you did not want to go into the
I mean, just look at
biblical stuff-
gorillas, how dense they are and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Like you can see
Yeah.
that.
Right.
That's my point. Well, one, giraffes exist, elephants exist, and guess what? They can catch up to you when you're driving. They
Right.
can catch up to you. They don't care about gravity. Gravity doesn't exist to them. So, like, I mean, look at the giraffe. Why is his neck not like literally just dropping from the gravity? Like,
Right.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But also, two, have you seen the movie Prometheus?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Do you remember?
the origin movie for the Aliens
Yeah,
series.
yeah. Do you remember when they actually went to when they got to that planet, whatever? And let's just get to the point where everyone's dead, and it's just the chick and the android.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the actor who played them. I forgot his name.
Michael Fassbender or something. He's the guy who plays
yeah. That's right. That's right.
Magneto and X-Men.
Magneto. That's right. First Class. Right. Yeah. When they get there, remember they wake up the engineer. And
Yes,
Yeah.
it's like he was like there as the failsafe to reactivate the weapons program.
engineer, he's a giant. He's a Nephilim. He's literally a giant. And
Yeah.
what was funny about it is when they did, I shouldn't say fun. Well, I thought it was funny. By the way, I saw that movie twice in theaters. I don't even know why I saw it the second time, but
It was a good
I
movie.
liked it.
it
Yeah.
is. I know a lot of people hate that movie, but I love that movie.
Same.
Yeah,
But
me too.
when they interact with the engineer, and the chick's like, why did you create us? What did we do that you want to kill us for? And then he's just like, that's
Yeah.
you woke me up. What the hell? And then just immediately starts
Eviscerating
brutalizing.
everybody. Yeah, he
Yeah.
like rips the android's head off. I think the girl barely survives.
Yeah, just barely survives because they
Yeah.
kill him with this giant ass squid or whatever it was, the Kraken looking thing. Anyways,
That's right. That's right. It was the beginning of the xenomorph.
yeah,
It's one of the
yeah.
first early iterations of the
Yeah.
xenomorph.
By
Yeah.
the way, I love that. I love that scene. I actually clapped in theaters. I was like, hell yeah.
Right.
But I always looked at it, and I think God, I can't think of the director's name right now, but
Ridley, something Ridley.
yes, Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott.
Yes,
So
yeah.
Ridley Scott even said there's a biblical sense to this film. He said that and he's talking about the fallen angels. The fallen angels were aliens, but they were giants.
Yeah.
And anytime people think of aliens, they always think of the gray aliens, right? They think of the little green men, gray alien, whatever. But in the
Right.
context of Prometheus, I was like, yo, this is pretty based. What they're saying is these giant humanoid-looking things,
Right.
created us. And guess what? Why did they create us? For a shit test.
Right.
and we didn't pass it. It's like an ant colony, right? Have you ever, as a kid, I used to have like an ant, like a actual container, and you could put ants in there. Ants will fight each other. They'll go at it. I think, and it's funny because they say it's practically a shit test, or I don't mean to cuss, crap test.
You're fine.
And because we didn't pass the whatever the rules or whatever it is they
wanted to see out of us,
yeah. They're like, oh, no, we're gonna. You guys are what? You're screwing each other, and you're screwing babies. What are you doing over there? Sodomy? And then they're like, yeah, no, we're gonna take you out.
Yeah, wipe them off the face of the earth. Yeah.
And by the way, I was rooting for the engineer. So
it's funny. Yeah, it's, to give an idea of people that might not have seen the movie, right? The whole idea here is that I always forget the name of the company. Whatever the big company is, right? It's in the future. It's Wesley something.
Yeah.
And it's like the very, very end point of space travel, and they're beginning to send expedition missions. And this one is actually on the idea that this lady has found with her husband alongside him a connection that points to they may have possibly found the origin planet of the species that made them.
It's like cave drawings, right?
Yeah, the cave drawings. They see them in like all the different locations, and they eventually like paired up, and they're like, we think it's this place out here in space. They go on the trip, and that's largely the goal, right? Is to figure out, why did they make us? Why did they send us here? And what went wrong? Because their kind of belief, and a lot of humans kind of feel that way even right now, is it's like the experiment's not over, or like, what, did we just get abandoned here? Or like, what's going on? That seems like we just got dropped off in this rock here, and these things don't make sense. And then you find out that in turn they were we were largely built as a stock of people, because they wanted to test weapons of mass destruction. And that's the whole purpose of that, why humans were created in Prometheus. And then you find that out, and I forget what was the sequel to that.
Alien Covenant thing.
Covenant, yes.
Yeah,
and the sequel.
By the way, that was terrible.
Yeah, that one wasn't as good. But you find that they actually aerosolized it, and so that was the big thing that they were trying to get done, was drop this aerosolized, chemical weapon. Yeah, to test out how prominent it was. But I think in turn with those scenes, you find out that they actually killed themselves, trying to develop all these programs, and they ended up, with the very iconic scene. I think it's in the beginning, not the end, of when the engineer tries to drink water on Earth, and it kills him. And it was, you could just kind of see like all of it kind of meet ahead. But again, the biblical references there, which is, that ever begging question a lot of people have, or I think if your head's on right, you're probably asking that, which is, why am I here? What is the purpose? And some people even kind of put it even more loosely. This is another side point tangent that I heard from another friend who's very into anthropology, which is, this is a whole different side point. But there's a belief in a theory and a school of thought, that just because the way that humans are built and designed, the way our eyes face forward, we stand on two legs, that we naturally ask the question, what is ahead of us? We naturally are already forward-looking kind of creatures, and that by itself, by that nature, begs the question of like, we're always like moving forward. And because we have that past, present, and future kind of like mindset, that inherently over time we begin asking like, why are we here? Because we must have a purpose if we're forward facing towards things. And there's like a school of thought there that it could just be something based on evolutionary. Not that I give it any credence, but it is something cool to go into. We are at the 2-hour mark though, Darkcel, so we're going to go ahead and start winding it down, wrapping it up. I want to give you a chance to shout out anything that you would like to give attention to, whether it's, again, your show at Rumble or anything else like that as well too. Now's your chance to start winding it down.
Yeah, so let me first say thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
That's been great.
For giving me the chance to say my piece about all this stuff. I did have more things to say, but that's fine. I mean, maybe some other time we'll.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have you back on, man, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe we can continue next weekend, even. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, whenever, man. It is what it is. But I will say, like, guys, you can check me out at Rumble, but I guess I should say, as precaution, I do talk about incel manosphere stuff.
Yep.
I mean, that's just who I am. I am trying to transition from that stuff to more like conspiracy stuff. I'd rather talk about Bigfoot and Dogman and stuff. And what's funny is you told me, Atlas, like Tyler wanted me to debate someone because you sent him videos of me talking about I guess feminist incel thing.
Yeah, the incel. It's like maybe we should have somebody to depose this guy. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I have no problem talking about this stuff, but it's like when I first contacted you, it was more about like let's talk about politics and Bigfoot and whatever the heck. Because I find it more interesting to do that stuff than it is to talk about why I can't get laid. You know, it's like it's just, you know, it's up to me.
And that's when I said, I was like, that was my bad. I was like, I probably should have led with you know, what did you want to talk about? So that was my bad because I just forwarded your information over to Worrell, and I was like, I would assume this is the area he would want to talk about. And that's when Worrell was like,
I mean, and by the way, I could do that if you want to do it. I just wonder why Tyler doesn't want to debate me.
Oh, interesting.
I don't necessarily take a opposite view, really. I think that the incel thing is, you know, I didn't watch like all of your videos. I just watched a couple, you know, couple minutes of what Atlas sent me. And I mean, I think it's an issue. I think you know, it's a problem. We need to procreate more. I think even they just upped the number of replacement from 2.1 babies per woman to 2.7 babies per woman for the population to replace itself. So I mean, you know, figuring out the problem was creating incels and getting these dudes into you know, families is an important problem. You know what I mean? But I don't. You know, I've been married for 20 years. I had a kid when I was 17. Like, I've been through some shit. I have some advice, but like, you know, I mean, I don't think I got the solutions to people's problems. And I didn't think it'd be like something that you and I would even like debate, like, to be honest with you.
Hey man, good for you, man. I'm happy for you. That's great. Because I don't, by the way, I have no ill will to, like, I'm not one of those people like, oh, you're a sex haver, therefore I don't like you.
I've never heard that in my entire life.
They're trying to make us have wars between black and white, young and old now, the generations, and now it's the sex havers and the not sex havers. I mean, get out of here. What the evil one will use anything to keep us divided and fighting, right?
the only thing that could possibly divide us right now is if I said, who would win in a fight, Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees?
I think Jason.
That's a tough one. You know, Jason stood toe to toe with Freddy. Like, that was pretty massive. So I don't know. That's a hard one to say.
Yeah, I'd take Jason.
I think I like Michael Myers more, but
I like Michael Myers more too. So there you go. We can be friends. So there you go. Michael Myers is king. I think you know, I think Spider-Man's king out of all the other superheroes. You know, it is what it is. I think Nick Fuentes is pretty cool. You know, you know. Anyway,
it looks like we have a consensus in chat that Jason is the hands down.
Oh no, I mean in a fight, no, you're right. Jason would absolutely destroy Michael, but I say that with a tear because I want Michael.
I get that.
Win, you know. Jason with a space. I love that. Jason with a space, he wins.
Captain says Michael is sneaky though.
Dude, but Michael's got that like it's weird because I remember in one of the movies, have you ever seen Halloween? I don't know. Have you ever watched have you seen all the films or
I watch them every year. I have a thing every year I watch Halloween.
Oh no, it's been a year since I've seen the last one that I've watched.
Well, what about Halloween 6?
They all blend together to me.
It had Paul Rudd in there before he ever became an Avenger.
Okay, well, he was in a bunch of them. He was in the first one too. He was the little kid.
Paul Rudd.
Yeah, I know who Paul Rudd is. I grew up in the same town. He was the little kid in like the first Halloween too.
Really?
No.
He's a little boy. Yeah.
He wasn't.
Really?
And then he plays himself as an adult later on in Halloween.
No,
that's not the same actor. It's not Paul Rudd.
That's not the same actor.
Oh, I thought it was the same kid.
No. He plays this character, the same character, but it's not the same.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the same. I thought it was the same him.
No,
But okay.
Paul Rudd
Good.
literally refuses to talk about Halloween 6.
Yeah, because he talks all weird. He talks like this the whole time, and he's trying to be creepy,
Really? That's
and
funny.
it's weird. Yeah,
He
but I like
beats up, He beats up Michael Myers with the lead pipe
it.
somehow. Anyways, guys, I sorry, I didn't mean to derail. Now you're trying to stop.
You're good.
Yeah,
You're good, man.
go on. But guys, if anything, Darkcel, Rumble. If you hate incels, don't come to my channel. But also, if you love conspiracies, come to my channel.
Do a bit of both.
And you're in the Discord, so if people want to reach out to you, they can join the Discord and talk to you there as well. So we have access behind the scenes to individuals through the Discord as well. So anybody's willing to join.
Yeah, and I guess the final thing I'll just say is with great inceldom comes no responsibility.
Gotcha. Hey,
Word.
Thank you very much for coming on, man. We appreciate it. I'll be looking forward to try to book you for sometime soon, because I think we probably should explore that a little bit. I know you would rather talk about cryptids, but at least maybe one episode we'll explore.
Hey man,
that.
I'm all for it, and I hear you, Tyler. You said you wanted me to debate someone. If you want me to,
Well, it was a suggestion. I just wanted to make sure I was just like, how can we incorporate this guy other than just being like a third on the panel and whatever. And I was like, well, maybe we should have a debate because it would be great to start hosting more debates. So that's kind of what that was coming from.
I love blood sports. I grew up on that stuff. I love blood sports, bro.
Well, let me add to that too, because part of the reason why I forwarded that to you, Darkcel, was because I was curious if you knew somebody would be willing to debate you.
No, I don't know.
Okay. Word. Then I'll try to find that. Then maybe that's something that we can try.
I'm kind of like Nick Fuentes in terms of like nobody wants to debate me because they're scared of me.
That's funny. That's awesome. I will. I'll try to find somebody. Maybe even somebody in the community would be willing to debate.
I would love to, bro. I don't even care if it's a female. I mean, I will call her Floyd the whole time, but I won't call her a female. I'll call her Floyd.
Well, Donnie says he'll represent the sex havers in a debate. Maybe Donnie will have a.
Donnie's actually was an old co-host of mine. He's actually been on camera before, so
that's cool. I mean, I kind of would rather have a hot babe, so it like distracts me a bit, so I don't know how to debate.
That's better for views.
Take my shirt off.
Imagine that. You like give me a chick that looks like a Scarlett Johansson from like Black Widow from MCU, and I immediately am like, oh man, I don't know how to use words.
That's funny. That's your weakness, your kryptonite. Well, with that though, thank you again, Darkcel. We do appreciate you being on, brother.
Yeah, man.
And
it's been
we'll
good.
see you sometime soon.
Have a good one, guys.
Probably in the next couple of weeks or so. But thank you very much. And again, he is in the Discord. Anybody who wants to find the Discord, the description should be, or the link should be in the description down below as well. World, did you want to say anything before we sign off?
I was just going to say, make sure everybody hits that like button, subscribes to the channel, all that good stuff. Monday, we'll be back on America First TV. And 7 o'clock, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, you can catch us. Also, like I said, join the Discord. Make sure you check out Atlas's channel as well. Everything is pinned in the description.
Yep.
Also, we are pushing a foundation and Dan McKnight's Defend the Guard. And so what Dan McKnight is asking for from people is 5 minutes of your time to make a phone call. And if that's something that you're willing to do, you can look up, or you can click the Dan McKnight link in the description. That'll take you to either Bring Our Troops Home or Defend the Guard. Both of them are Dan McKnight's deal. They'll get you set up with an individual that can coach you through these phone calls. And the mission is to get Congress to declare war before we actually send the National Guard overseas, basically abusing the National Guard the way that they have. These people, when they're active duty, they're paid a lot, but when they're not active duty, they're just taken advantage of. And it's important that Congress takes the proper steps before these people get sent overseas and put in harm's way and stuff like that. And so it's a good cause. And basically, you give them 5 minutes of your time. They'll tell you what phone number to call, what to say. And when you inundate individuals, our leaders, with phone calls to their office, that's the best way to really make an impact. And so That's what they're putting together. And they've passed legislation in, I believe it's 30 states. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the most recent one was Arizona.
Yeah, it's
and
like
so
23 or 30. I always forget the number.
Okay, I think 30 sticks out in my head. And then the other one is Chris's foundation. And it's Bridging Pathways, and they're trying to support, veterans, homeless, people that, not even homeless, just anybody that really needs help, that's reaching out for help. And so they'll take goods. Chris's email is down in the description. You can reach out to him. He is in the Discord as well. He will give you his phone number in the Discord. You can call him directly. It's all not for profit. Like every cent, everything goes to the people that need it. Everybody that works for Chris's foundation are volunteers, and just a couple of things that we want to push as a community. Chris is one of us. He has his own channel, Chris Stockham. And I saw somebody earlier asked in chat if we do like any type of like prayer circles or anything like that. Chris's channel would be where we do that. He has Bible studies, all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of the same folks that you'll see in chat here, and it's the same people in Discord. And it's a great community, and we're just trying to help each other out, because if we don't help each other out, nobody else is, right? And so the last words for me would just be, it was a great show. Thank you for coming on, Darkcel. And I look forward to having you on again, man. Let's continue this, and maybe next time we won't fill the first half of the show with some politics, and we'll just get right to the fun stuff. We'll get into more cryptids. We'll get into that fun stuff, man. The aliens, however we want to take it. I think right.
Unless you want to do the incel.
Yeah, we could do a debate too. I mean, you can come on multiple times. You know what I mean? So it's as long as you're willing, and I think you might be.
I'm pretty much willing to talk about anything. So
perfect,
fantastic. Cool. So, and then my last words. Thanks, Angry American, to spread the gospel. All we can do right now, guys. It's coming. 100% agree. Pray for revival in our country, and then my final words would be, Christ is King.
Yeah, amen to that. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. Smash the like button. If you don't, leave the Discord, never come back, or I'll ban you personally. The second thing I would say is, again, we got to make sure we can deport Kash Patel as soon as possible. We need to bring all women back to the kitchen, ban them entirely out of professional life. And with that, I also say Christ is King. Thank you guys, everybody. Have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you sometime soon. Take care, everybody.
With war, world, and Atlas thug, we here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast, we breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up, we won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast, where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas thug, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Draw open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar openers podcast, where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas thug, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast, where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas thug, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast, where the lies will decrease.